This is sort of just going to be an off-the-cuff video because it is. So anyway, what I wanted to say regarding nationalism is that if you want the things that nationalism is going to give to you, you should not be pursuing it. What do I mean by this? Let's say you want ethnic homogeneity. Are you going to get ethnic homogeneity by changing the United States government? You're not. You're not going to get ethnic homogeneity by changing the United States government because you're not going to change the United States government. And so, what can you do? If you can't change the United States government, what you can do is you can change the way you live your life and the way other people around you live your life. But that's not nationalism. That's minoritarianism. Okay? Nationalism as a term, what does it actually mean? There's an etymological definition, historical definition that is bound up in the revolutions of 1848. And the revolutions of 1848 were started by Freemasons. Okay? That is what nationalism means. Nationalism is a Freemasonic merchant class ideology used to undermine the church, and it's used to undermine, additionally, the monarchies, which were multinational, right? The Holy Roman Empire was not a ethnically homogeneous empire in any sense. You had Czechs, you had Italians, you had Poles, you had French, you had Dutch, you had all kinds of people in there. So this was used to undermine the monarchies. It was used to undermine the church. And when we use that term nationalism, what's it about? It's about the people, das Volk. And that's straight from Rousseau. Rousseau, who is this 18th century philosopher who is coming out of the bourgeoisie. He's coming out of a bourgeoisie mentality, a merchant class mentality. And he's talking about the blank slate. What does that mean, the blank slate? Well, there's a meaning in terms of anthropological, but then politically, the blank slate means let's wipe out the church, let's wipe out the monarchies, and let's create new governments based on the principle of the people as a quantity, and in voting and democracy and so on. So, what does all of this mean? All of this means is that if we understand the etymology of nationalism, then we see that without such an elite, a mercantile elite, we're not going to revive nationalism. Okay? Now you may say, oh, well, I don't believe you or something. Okay, let's look at the colloquial definition of nationalism. Nationalism, effectively, if you're a nationalist in the United States of America, what does that mean? It means you support Donald Trump. It means you support the Republican Party. It means you're America first. Okay, what is that doing for you? What has Trump done for you? What has the Republican Party done for you? How are these entities advancing your interests? They're not. And the idea that simply by agitating for these things in the political sphere that you're going to get them, that's not actually how politics works, right? You can agitate all day and night for all sorts of things. I mean, feminists have been agitating for equality for over 100 years or more. You know, have they, I mean, they've done something, but are women happier, right? And so you could run around agitating for nationalism, but does that mean you're going to be happier? No, not necessarily. Because the government does not change according to mere agitation. The government changes according to incentive, and agitation is not the sole incentive. It's not the most important incentive that the government looks at. The government responds to incentives. You know, for example, an incentive would be a rival power invades your territory. Well, that's a pretty big incentive to do something about that, right? Or an incentive would be you get a bribe from the corporate world. That's a good incentive. An incentive would be something like, you know, your entire bureaucratic apparatus is staffed by people who come from academia, and academia has a set of ideologies and a dominant ideology within it that informs the power structure. That's an incentive. If you have a whole bunch of people in the government who, are going through college where they learn about critical theory, well, that's going to be an incentive for the government to be informed by critical theory. So there are all kinds of incentives, but simply by agitating for nationalism, by saying, let's make America great again and close the borders and blah, 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 doesn't mean it's going to happen. People have been agitating for that since Pat Buchanan. Hasn't happened. We haven't moved in that direction. So mere agitation without power is just called nagging. You're like a woman. You're nagging. You're just like, meow, please give me my borders. Meow. Please give me my traditional family. Meow. And you're going out there, and these people are doing protests. These people are going out and doing protests, the least effective form of social agitation possible. And it's sad, it's pathetic. You're not going to achieve your goals doing this. You're not going to make your life better. What do you want? You want to live around people like yourself? Look at California. California is a minority white state. You want to live around white people? Look at Meghan Markle. Meghan Markle grew up in a majority white town in California. But wait, I thought white genocide. I thought, oh no. I thought, there's no such thing as white people. We're going to be a minority. They're going to kill us. Well, Meghan Markle grew up in a majority white county. How's that possible? Because if you have enough social capital, financial capital, legal capital, if you have resources, if you have organizational capacity, if you're a rich person, then you can live in a white community. And furthermore, if you want to live in a white community, there are places like West Virginia, there are places like North Dakota you can go, and you can live in a white community. And you may not like the direction that the country is going in, but complaining about it, nagging about it, wishing that it was different, that's not going to produce something different. That's not going to produce a different situation to say like, oh, well, I wish things were different, please make things different. That's not going to change the reality of the situation. What can you effectively do? Are you going to vote for I'm going to vote for base nationalist politicians? You really think that's going to go anywhere? You really think you're going to get anything out of that? Or what can you do tomorrow? What can you do that's going to help you build a grip? You say you want to live around people like yourself. White people? You mean like Antifa? You mean like white liberals? You mean like white cat ladies? You mean like white people who are, frankly, more radically ideological than black people? At this point, the polling data says if you ask black people and then you ask white liberals, do you think racism is the biggest problem in this country? Black people actually are less likely than white liberals to say that. Black people are more likely to say, no, racism's not the biggest problem. White liberals are fanatical. So you want to live around white people, really? No, you don't want to live around white people. You want to live around people who think the same way as you. You want to have high social trust. There's ways to move toward that. There's ways to achieve that have nothing to do with a political ideology, have nothing to do with trying to vote for base politicians, nothing to do with Freemasons in the 18th to 19th centuries, nothing to do with any of that. So you have to understand how nationalism came about as an ideology which came to a head in World War II, the process by which that happened. If you understand how it arose, then you'll understand why it's not coming back. And since it's not coming back, you should stop agitating for it. And instead, you should ask yourself what you really want in life. You want the power to live around people who are not hostile to you. You want to insulate yourself from cultural warfare. You want to insulate your children from cultural warfare. You're not going to do that by engaging in cultural warfare where you say, I'm a nationalist, we have to make America nationalist again. That's not going to work. And so instead, you have to say, well, how can I gain power to be able to get the things that I want to do? How do I gain power? It's not by having a protest, not by agitating in the streets. It's about building social, financial, religious capital. It's about getting together with people and starting a business. It's about getting together with people and starting a church. It's about getting together with people and being able to make money and being able to worship and being able to have friends and being able to do rituals together. If you can't do those things, if that seems too far afield for you, oh no, that's too specific. We need to bring in all, 200 million white Americans united as one in a nationalist party. It's not going to happen. The demographics are against you in the sense that white people are becoming more liberal. The people are becoming more conservative are Hispanics and blacks, statistically. By any metric, this is true. And you're not going to unite all these people. These are disparate people with different class interests, different ethnic interests. Okay? Irish Catholics vote differently from German Protestants. And German Protestants who are liberal Lutherans vote differently from those who are hardline. Amish vote differently from those who are atheists, vote differently from those who are, all kinds of things, right? Divorced families, not divorced families, right? So what I'm trying to say to you is that this goal, this dream of, well, if we could just unite all the white people together, we'd have a nationalist country. It's not going to happen. And frankly, that's not how politics works. Politics doesn't work by getting together 200 million masses together. It works by having a small concerted group of Bolsheviks, a small concerted group of Freemasons, a small concerted group of merchants, a small concerted group of Jesuits, a small concerted group of people who know what they're doing, they know why they're doing it, they know how they're going to do it, they know what they're going to do, and they're not confused, and they utilize and they manipulate the masses in order to get what they want. They don't appeal directly to the masses without having any infrastructure, any rituals. Like, if you don't have a solid core group of people that you would consider elites, and I mean that in the broadest sense possible, not like you're in power already, but people who have the intellectual capacity, the charisma, the communication skills, organizational capacity, conflict resolution, like all the things that you need to make any good company or church or any organization, military, right? If you don't have those things, then trying to appeal directly to the masses is a waste of time. If you have those things, then you can start thinking about what you want to do with those things. And there are many groups that do have those things and who have a much better chance of survival than nationalists. Mormons, Jews, people who have their own churches, the Armenian Americans, people who are forming right now. You can say, you look at PhDs in America. Okay, so if you have people who are at a high level organizationally, those people can survive, those people can compete. But this worship of the working class, this worship of, well, I am working class, so I guess I have to be working class, that's not a working strategy. That's just wishful thinking. That's this idea of the pitchforks and we're all going to get together, we're going to overthrow, that's American Revolution nonsense. The American Revolution was started by Freemasons. It wasn't started by people with pitchforks, okay? It was started by very, very rich Freemasons, like George Washington, who were elites, who were generals in the British Army, who were the richest men in America. It was not started by the average person. The average person was drafted into a movement that they created. So you first have to have elites, and then once you have elites, then you can start playing around with mass movements. But before then, it's a waste of time. It's why nationalism is a waste of time, because none of you people actually have elite groups. None of you people actually have something. And that's the nature of nationalism, right? The nature of nationalism is to ignore elite group formation and to instead say, actually, let's just go directly to the people. You believe the lie of the American Revolution. You believe what you were told in third grade about how the American Revolution got started, which was a lie, which was propaganda, right? And because you believe that propaganda, you're now doing a cargo cult where you're trying to rebuild the country off propaganda that was told to you about the American Revolution. plenty of people did not support the American Revolution. Okay, the American Revolution was not popular in the South. Okay, a lot of the people were loyalists. A lot of people are like, why are you fighting the government? We like the government. Okay, that's why a lot of the fighting happened around Washington, D.C. and in Boston, because that's where they could get the support from mercantile elites. The Southern planter class was much more loyal to the British. And in fact, that loyalty remained to the point of the Civil War that the South was considering having an alliance with the British on aristocratic basis. So I hope that, gets the noggin jogging.